Hey AJ, thank you for coming to Australia, and I hope you enjoyed the Australian Open and learned a lot from the Coaches Conference. Here we see you on the left on the clay courts at Melbourne Park, and Roger Federer dressed just like you at the US Open. And both of you are at 240 frames per second. That's 8 times slower than normal speed, which is 30 frames per second. Let's look at some of the things you do quite similar to Roger, but let's first break down the key positions. So key positions are the important fundamentals of the serve. And the first key position is really the backswing, as we see here. And as we pause here, I want you to note that although you already released the ball, you already tossed, your racket arm is still by your side, whereas Roger's arms are more in sync. They're up together. So we're going to discuss that shortly. Here we see another key position. We call this the loaded position, loading, where the knees are flexed and ready to thrust upwards. The elbow is also bent at about 90 degrees, and that's what we call the power position. Here we see cocking, when the racket's in the slot are ready to accelerate upwards at the ball. The contact point, and finally the follow through. Let's break down now the two things that we're working on. One of them, if you saw, we want the racket arm up earlier and a lower toss. And when we compare Roger Federer, we're going to see the difference right here, where you already released the ball, but your racket, if you notice, is down at your side. So this is what I call a staggered motion, tossing arm up, racket still down. Roger, as you see, his arms are more synchronized together. His racket arm is further away from his body, but he hasn't yet released the ball. So he will have a lower toss, and you will have to toss higher for your racket arm to catch up, which means it's harder to time. If it's a little windy, that can be a problem. And if you're a little nervous, that can also be a problem. Even if your toss is just off by a couple inches, that can result in maybe less first serves in. So now here we pause right at the apex of the ball of Roger Federer. You can still see his toss. The ball is about 4 feet beyond his tossing arm, maybe 3.5 feet. Yours is well out of the picture, so you have to toss really much higher than Roger. And again, that's going to result in probably less consistency. Let's look at another thing you want to do besides that lower toss and more synchronized arm is toss along the baseline and rotate. Here we're playing the toss several times over, and what we're really trying to, you can see Roger Federer, really his arm is moving along that baseline, maybe slightly in front, where you are really tossing more into the court towards the net strap. That doesn't allow your shoulders to rotate away from the court as well. So that limits the amount of shoulder rotation and amount of loading you can possibly get. So you might limit the power of your serve. So try to toss a little more sideways and get that rotation in for extra power. Once again, let's take a look at yours and Roger Federer's serve. Work on those two things, AJ. You already have a very promising looking serve. It is much improved. I'm glad to be working with you. Keep working hard, and good luck.